where we really see providence is when we look back. We can look back, and see, I see how the Lord was guiding me, or has been guiding me, at those times. It's more likely we could see it if we want to see it again there. And from that, learn the lessons that we need to learn. And I think that mostly in that, when you really do sense that the Lord was there for me in the good and the bad, the more hope I have, the more confidence I have, the more peace I have that in God's world, everything is okay.
Hello, and welcome to the Mysteries of Faith show. Here, we explore religion and life through a Swedenborgian Christian perspective. In this series, we're joined by Grant Schnarr, author, teacher, minister, and spiritual leader. We delve chapter by chapter into his book, You Can Believe, an introduction to new Christianity. Enjoy. The rules of the universe, okay. Divine Providence.
Right.
How's all this working?
How does God provide for us?
Right. And what are the rules of the world? Is God watching over us? Is his hand on the rudder? Can he take the wheel? All that stuff. So that's a lot.
Yeah.
In previous episodes, we talk about how God is love. Mm-hmm. And what he wants most for humanity is to be the best version of themselves, mm-hmm. to learn to love one another, to be kind to one another, to be a blessing to one another, and to feel the Lord's blessing in their own lives. And as a result, because he loves us, he gives us the ability to love, which means he gives us the ability to be free, because love has
Absolutely.
To be free. And if love has to be free, that means we're going to be free to not love. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where we should perhaps start. Is the Lord's divine providence. Mm. He's looking out for us. What does that mean? What is he providing for us exactly?
Well, you laid it out quite well, or at least teed me up for this. I mean, so much to say, but if you think about it again in terms of the creator of the universe, God, the Lord, creating us to draw us to himself in our own freedom and to eventually end up in a place called heaven and community and communion with him and one another, then how is he providing for us here? It kind of brings you right into the idea that providence, God's providence, isn't necessarily something like God sitting there looking at us. Wait, I got to move this around or that around. I don't want him to step out into traffic, so I'll have somebody come up to him so he doesn't, get killed here, and over here I'll have them win $1,000 because that'll make him feel good. But that person's not going to win any money because No, that's not how it works. It's all laid out. That's what's cool about providence. It's like the grid is there. And it's spiritual physics, so to speak. There are laws of the universe, as we all know, in the natural world, but in the spiritual world, it's the same thing. For every reaction, there's a chain reaction. For every direction we go, God has set it up so that in our own freedom, we can choose good and the right path. He's like the ultimate programmer. I mean, okay. He's, just like video games, there's some programmer behind that is limited. I mean, that you can only build so much of a program. God's program is unlimited, and that program in every way leads us in our own freedom, and that's so critical, to heaven, to himself.
So I used freedom once. You used freedom at least twice in that
Maybe
answer.
More. Mm-hmm.
And you also talked about the spiritual rules or the spiritual physics almost. So I know, but talk a little bit about what that first rule. What is the most important rule for the Lord's universe?
Now I got to guess about that. Freedom?
Yes. Yeah, the first of divine providence is freedom.
Yeah. Well, see, that's where it's so critical. I mean, the whole thing's a joke if that's not true. I mean, but so in this world, there's all kinds of opportunities for following him. I mean, limitless. But then there's limitless opportunities not to. But what I like about the idea of providence, or the way Swedenborg lays out that every single thing in this world has some kind of response, action response, from what we do, is that it's built into every single aspect of the creation. Our freedom is built into it in a sense, allowing us to be free. We're not puppets here.
So let's talk about an example you used. I was going to step into the road, and I might have gotten hit by a car, but then God has somebody stop in the way, and he rearranges all the puzzle pieces, and as a result, I don't get hit. And you said, no, that's not how it happened.
Everything in this world, God is in. Okay, so in a sense, there was something in God's order that allowed that person not to step in front of that car, but that is, or whatever, out in the middle of the road. Now, I don't want to be so crass, but I mean, God cares more about what our choices are and getting us into a place where we are going to be eternally happy than, for instance, what kind of breakfast we have in the morning, or who we speak to,
or whether we get hit by a car.
Well, that's where I didn't want to go because it sounds so harsh. But yeah, I mean, he grieves with us. I think that's true. I mean, thinking of him at least in that human of terms, doesn't want us to suffer, to go through anything bad, hurtful, and wrong. But the ultimate goal of providence is not to stop us from hurting ourselves or getting hurt or stepping out of order. Because again, everything would be a joke. Our freedom and love and coming to him is all it's all about. Now, let me just say one thing, another way that I remember, and I probably have twisted the story around a little bit some way or another since, but way back when planes used to crash a lot more, back in the 70s and things like that, that there was a plane that crashed, and I'm not sure if there were few survivors or just one, but it was very few survivors. And they were interviewing this woman, I forget how many were killed. I mean, 75, 100 people were killed. They interviewed this woman that was a survivor, and she said, "Oh yeah, I talked all about it." She goes, "Well, there's one thing I know now. There is a God." And I'm like, "What about the 70 whatever other people that died? What about them?" And I think that often is where we think about, God is right into, we don't get the big picture of what God is and how God works in this world.
So it can't work that way, because if God is saving that one lady, then he's also
allowing or
by
killing
neglect,
the other one. Right.
Even if by neglect, just letting the other, it seems,
if that was his goal,
arbitrary.
Right.
And so it can't work arbitrary.
Right.
If he is a God of love and mercy.
Right.
So it's got to have some kind of rules to it.
Exactly. And in that way, you can say everything has a reason in it. We could get into, I don't like that statement, like everything has a reason. But in the sense that God has built the potential of everything has a reason, in the sense of there is potential in everything for us to grow. There's potential in everything for us to come closer to God, but there's also the potential not to.
So there's that delicate balance that God didn't cause the bad thing to happen, but he lets it happen, and at the same time tries to lead us to see that good can come out of it.
Absolutely. I mean,
if we let it.
There's something built into his entire, universe that not only tries, it's there for us.
Right.
That power to bring us back. Now, I'm not going to tell somebody that in the middle of a tragedy, "Oh, by the way, God's got some plan," or whatever. That's not, they need to be in.
And yet, people do that. That's the crazy thing.
Well, they're making me squirm in my chair about that one. Oh,
yes.
no. Oh, I know that it's God's will. I mean, I got to tell you, I mean, even someone that says, "Well, I believe there's a reason for everything," and I have to confess, in my book, Guardian Angel Diary, I actually say that, but I've really come to see that in the sense that never tell somebody in a tragedy. And I had somebody do this to me in a very, very hard tragedy that I went through. Someone said to me, "Well, I guess there's a reason for everything, isn't there?" And I was kind of like, "Thank you very much. I mean, you just said something. That God did something terrible, in my life, and I wasn't appreciative of it. I didn't say anything, but because that implies that God did it, I mean that I whatever it is, I hurt that family tremendously, so I could teach them something about life or whatever. No. But I do believe in the sense of in everything that happens, even in the most harmful, things that happen, God is so powerful that he can make good come out of it. And we would look back and go, and I can see this, look back and go, "Oh, that's the reason it happened." But in that sense, I mean, I can see even in the worst thing possible that God has already pre-planned how good can come out of anything. So it really helps me to see the power of God. But again, people in tragedy, I think they just need to know you're there for them and that there is a God and that he loves you and, that kind of thing, rather than, there's going to work out in the long run or something like
Right.
that.
I think that's part of what makes this conversation so difficult for me compared to some of our others, is because I'm mindful that there are going to be people who may watch or listen to this who are actually going through a tragedy right now.
Oh, okay. Absolutely.
Or worse, have actually had that level of, I think some people even call it like spiritual abuse, or religious abuse, where they're going through a tough time and someone says the absolute worst thing to them. It's when someone says, well, I used to be religious, but then, my daughter got cancer and people said, oh, God let her, or God wanted her to get cancer. And so, you know what? I'm out. Well, I would be out too. if that's what believing in God was.
I don't believe in God. I said, I don't believe in that God.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think, so just even for those who are listening and thinking about them, like, no, like God does not will the bad thing to happen to your loved ones or to you. That is not in his plan. And yet he still allows it to happen. And I think that is the tragedy of the world in one sense, that we do actually live in a world populated by people who are really selfish. I know this because if I'm honest with myself, I have that in me. And so some of the pain and suffering in the world is caused by the fact that there's a whole lot of people in it who cause a whole lot of pain and suffering.
Everybody's free.
Right. And so that's really hard.
Yeah, and we already said it, but it's not like God wound up the world and in our freedom said, okay, go. He is present everywhere. And so, I mean, and so in those times of trouble or harm, we may not feel God, and we may come into some doubts. But one of the things that gives me comfort is to know that the love of the universe is still there, for me. The hand of God is still here. It's just that the hand of God didn't just slap me in the face.
Right.
It's here to lift me up and to hold me even in those times of trouble. And I put that out to people who are suffering. Sometimes it's hard. I mean, I've come to places in my life where I really felt like, well, where is God? And I think we all have. To a degree, if something really bad has happened or things like that. But keeping open at some level, to I don't understand,
Right.
I'm going to keep open. That's saved me 100 times. People give up. People do give up, and the problem for me, looking at giving up, that means shutting down, blocking out, stopping life, God from giving me those opportunities to find happiness and joy again in my life. So the whole key is to stay open, and it'll come back.
Yeah, I think one of the key rules of divine providence or laws of spiritual physics for me is the idea that the Lord created people, and therefore me, to be not just a receiver of his love, but a vessel, something that sends his love out to the world through me. And that the purpose of my creation isn't to just get blessed or not, or glorify God, but to actually bring God's love into reality. So that when I see tragedy, if I listen, I can hear God calling, like act, love,
Yes.
do something, reach out. And at the same time, if something happens to me, it's the same thing. Like you were saying, people give up or people close down, people shut down and they shut God out. Similarly, in tragedy, it's really tempting to shut people out. I'm reminded of the classic joke where somebody's up on top of a roof and they're praying to God during a flood and the flood's going on. And he says, oh, God, save me. And a guy with a boat comes by and he's like, hey, do you want to get on the boat? No. God's got it. I keep praying and the guy with the boat leaves. God, please save me. A guy with a helicopter comes by and says, well, we've got a rope. No, I've got it. God's got me. And the helicopter flies off. And then the floods come and he dies. And he's like, God didn't save me. And God says, I tried. I sent you the helicopter. I sent you the boat. I'm sending all these people. Because that's also how the Lord's going to love people, is through people.
Absolutely. It's interesting. I could bring it all together. Many of us remember quite well 9/11.
Right.
The attack, World Trade Center, and everything else. And there were a lot of people at that time that went. I don't think there's a God anymore because God would have not allowed these people to fly these planes in the buildings, and kind of like, what, really? I mean, what's he going to do? Stop them halfway and make them turn around or whatever? I mean, even though it was that evil and heinous, action that they took. I mean, he can't or wouldn't all of a sudden change, the reality of how this world works.
He can't take away an evil person's freedom to do evil.
Like you're saying, but the thing about God being present and things like that, and through other people, we all remember how people all of a sudden the love and care for each other came out, and to help each other. People were, like, say, walking through the cities of New York or whatever, that never looked up to see each other or greet each other. We're all sitting around talking around the world. All the strangers are talking like they were best friends. Churches filled up. People responded like you would never believe in helping those people that were affected by this.
Yeah.
Love came out everywhere, which really showed me how powerful good is. You know?
We live near Philadelphia. That's where we're filming this.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing emergency rescue teams, just individuals, driving up to New York just to help out.
Right.
In the aftermath with the wreckage, just volunteer firefighters and other rescue personnel going up to New York just to open up their hearts.
And yes, and they did that for months and months and months. Our good friend, another colleague, Reverend Tom Rose, chaplain. He's a pastor, but also a chaplain, and worked with rescue missions and things like that for ages. Went up there to help. They had crews that had set times, to go up. All because they loved their neighbor. It wasn't like there was some kind of governmental, like, okay, we're going to have these and these. It was because of the love of the neighbor that it was organized, and that these folks took off their time, to do this. So there you see just how powerful love is and how powerful God is. I mean, in our own freedom, had to these individuals cause us incredible horror, and terrorists means they wanted to create terror. And what happened was God created love.
Yeah, one thing about that is you talk about it in the book. You just mentioned how a lot of people say, "Oh, it was fleeting; it didn't last." I think that relates to something we talked about in an earlier episode about how life isn't about instantaneous salvation. It's not about turning a switch and everything's better and hunky-dory now. It's about a process. And so when tragedy strikes and love washes up and says, go and do, and a lot of people do, we shouldn't then be surprised that it waxes again, or wanes again, that it goes away again, because it's a process. Mm-hmm. People are always forgetting to love their neighbor. And then one of the good things that comes out of tragedy is that we are reminded that, no, we can love our neighbor. Mm-hmm.
And I think that we find inspiration by, as it wanes or whatever, our hearts have been changed forever, in the sense of, if we allow it to happen that way. But
if we allow
it to happen, because again, I brought up plane crashes, but I remember another one, that plane crashed into the Potomac. I don't know if you remember this. And there was this woman who was trying to get to shore. It was freezing waters, was in the crash. And she started to go down. She came up, down, and this guy standing there on the shore, Lenny Skutnik, I remember his name, jumped in, just this ordinary guy, jumped in, swam out, and brought her back and saved her. I remember that. I don't know what year that was. I think I was pretty young. Might have been still like a teenager or something, but wow, wow. I wish I could do something like that. I mean, I don't wish anything bad, but like to have that kind of courage and be a hero. He was a hero. And, there was somebody that just did something good in a horrible situation, jumped in instantly, risked their own lives to save somebody. And that anybody that watched him, or all the people that have done that, or the heroes of 9/11, something opens up in their heart, or it can open up in their heart.
If they let it.
And that's what we keep talking about. That's absolutely true. Freedom.
Yeah, but that's what's amazing, is that somebody's act of love can bring glory to God, not in the glorifying God, but in the showing people that you can love one another, showing you people that love can be this transformative experience. Something that I think about that with tragedy or natural disasters or disease is that these tragedies and these diseases and bad things that happen, they remind me that I can respond reactively with love. But the Lord doesn't want us to just be, to bring an idea from a previous episode, reactive in trying to be a good person, but proactive.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So when I think about, famine in the developing country, it's not, there's a famine, we should send food. We should. But, maybe we should think about how we structure our economy and our world and all these other things that we could be doing to make it easier to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, welcome the stranger, all those things. You can do it proactively too. So those bad things can be a call for us to proactively make the world genuinely a more heavenly place, a more loving place.
Yeah, and again, I mean, we're talking about why bad things happen, and we're talking very much about how God's present and how good can come out of it. I think what you're saying is, and that's true every day in everything we do, in every situation, that God is there, and all these choices we make constantly, hopefully a lot of big picture, long-term choices for good.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned, rescue workers going up after 9/11, or the guy jumping into the river, or other examples of people doing these amazing, loving things. Not all of those people believed in God. So how do we say that this is God acting in the world?
Well, I think people may not say that they believe it's God, but I mean, it depends on how, they don't name it, but if they still believe in love, or they have that love within them that reacts within them, as a religious person or a minister, I call that God.
Right.
And I believe that love has a definite personality or whatever like that. But that people are still do good. It's God, whether they believe it's God or not. And again, you just pointed out, I mean, you've been pointing out, and I absolutely agree, people have to be free, even in those times where they're doing good, or whether they see good or believe in good, or whether they don't, they're free. They're free to take life as they want to take life.
Yeah, and they're free to say, this is nothing special, I'm just doing.
Yeah.
They can be cynical if they want.
Well, exactly. And I think sometimes that kind of thing comes across because people are being humble, like, in the sense, like, I'm not, I just did it. I didn't even think about it. I just did it.
I think it's interesting to think about how, even though they don't know that they are acting with the Lord's love flowing through them, it is flowing through them.
Yeah.
People say God works in mysterious ways. I don't like that phrase because it means sometimes, he took this person's life.
Right.
But it is true in another sense. We don't always see how God is leading people. And it's not through manipulating chance or through manipulating the natural world or the way things work, but because he's always, in a hidden way, working on our hearts. And I love that idea. Now, in the book, you talk a little bit about how there is a way of providence, or a flow, or there's a path that the Lord has in mind for all of us.
Well, Swedenborg talks about that very much, about that there is this, what he calls a stream of providence, and other times just the flow of providence, or the draw of God to us. And basically, it leads to all good things. I mean, it's almost like let God, let go of all those things that you're holding back. Go with the flow, because there is a flow here where God is. If we get into the flow, that flow is going to lead us to heaven. Even now, it doesn't mean all good things like you're going to win $1 million and stuff like that. It means good things that are the treasures of heaven, not of earth. That we will be led to happier and happier lives, and ultimately be led to heaven if we can fight God. I mean, we can fight that. We are free to stand there and say no and not be in that flow. But the very fact that there is a flow, that we can just get into that flow and go with God, is comforting to me. No. And also what I find is very interesting is, like, there are other religions that have the same kind of idea, and just mention one that I've studied, the Taoism. Can't say I'm an expert on it, but the Tao means the way. And when you get into it even a little bit, you see that the way they're talking about is the path, the flow. I mean, you let go, get into that way of living, which most of it is simply letting go of yourself and your own way,
And
you're
that's
going to be taken and carried to all good things. So there's a lot of
and even
that
Jesus
truth is out there.
Yeah, and even Jesus calls himself
I am
the way,
I'm the way, the truth, and the life.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, here's another one: Christianity. I mean, you may know this as well, but Christianity in the beginning was not called Christianity after Jesus had risen from the dead. They called it the way. Are you in the way? Do you know the way? And it was later on. There's some speculation, but a lot of different historians will say that it was the Romans who named Christians Christians, and it was a derogatory term. Those Christians or whatever. Some people say it came in later, but
that's beautiful. The idea that they were thinking about the way, even at that foundational point.
How simple and beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I had yes, yeah. So it's funny. I was doing another podcast at the time, and I was talking about this, and the person that was interviewing me also was like, "Wow, I had never heard that before." I'm like, "Okay, I got to go back and look this up. Am I telling the truth?" And
Now you
oh
put it
yeah,
up.
yeah, I am.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, well, then we can cut all that extra part out, but that is a cool fact.
Oh no, that's
I
good.
love it. No, we're going to keep that part, but anyway.
We'll cut that
I'm
part.
too self-conscious. Yes. What was I going to say? Oh, yes, about the path and the way and the mystery of God's leading. And, oh, yeah, and the idea that we can let the Lord lead us. And you mentioned the idea that doesn't mean you're going to win the Powerball Millions lottery. I think it's worth talking about that. The whole prosperity gospel.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, we're talking here on a podcast, and we're going to be on YouTube, things like that.
Yeah.
That's very popular on the internet,
Yeah.
and not what we're talking about.
No, I mean, in fact, some of these things, there are people who have got it right out there, the sense of like it means you're going to become happier and happier. But these folks that take a lot of Jesus's words about like if you believe all things are possible, you can move a mountain and stuff like that. They take that and they just turn it into something external. Like, so if you really believe like Jesus says, or like this or that religion, you're going to get that $1 million. You're going to get this and that. And they miss the whole point of seeking first the kingdom of God and all these things be added unto you. They're using it like some kind of trick to get money. Where I went, okay, that's enough. Is I remember somebody saying, and I followed all these principles and everything, and I got my trophy wife. It's like, oh, great.
That's terrible.
That's God. That's following the Lord.
Right.
I feel sorry for his trophy wife if that's all if she's just some, piece of property that he acquired,
Right.
So I don't, it's absolutely true that we can get into this flow of life and that we can be led to all good things. But those good things are character things, are the kingdom of God, are the treasures of heaven. And I think if we're living a good life, if we are becoming a happy, healthy person, if we are becoming someone who is giving to other people and people recognize us as being somebody with a lot of integrity and things like that, we're going to have more friends. We might get a job that brings us more money. We may have a longer, healthier life, but that's because of the choices we've made for good to become good people. We don't do this so that we can, in a selfish way, acquire these things. That's the treasures on earth. That's the way to unhappiness.
Right. In fact, we even talked about that at the very beginning. The blessings that the Lord is trying to give you is the blessing of opening your heart so that you can love others and experience joy and happiness in the loving of others, not so you get some kind of monetary or physical reward. And you're right, we could live a good life, but even a person who's a saint, who, figuratively speaking, who, or even literally, who does good, loves people, and is kind, and their heart's going out to people, they could get cancer. They can still get hit by a bus. Bad things still happen to good people.
Well, they do, and so again,
naturally, if bad things.
And if you put yourself in a space, where you're trying to take care of yourself, you're more likely to, because of your own freedom, have a longer life. But it's not a guarantee, because God doesn't say, or did not set it up so if you're good, you're never going to get sick, and if you're evil, you're going to get sick and die. Because again, that would take away our freedom. So that kind of thing hits indiscriminately. I mean, in a sense, like you're not going to prevent yourself from getting cancer by living a good life. Now, some people would say yes, but you can do a lot of things to eliminate that possibility more and more. Agreed.
But that's not even the point.
Yeah.
Like, the reason why I shouldn't smoke isn't just so that I don't get lung cancer, but also because then I'm a more useful person. I can be a more useful
You're not
person.
taking all those breaks out in the
Well,
back
also because
alley.
if I'm healthier, I can be a better father,
Yeah.
a better husband, a better minister.
Yeah.
I can live longer and serve more
Yeah.
people. And it's about the capacity to love. It's not about the stuff. It's not
It's
about,
not about the stuff. I mean, that's what I love. I mean, like when he says lay out treasures in heaven, he says not on earth because where moth and rust destroy and where thieves
right.
break in and steal. What he's saying is these things aren't lasting. You know, long-lasting joy comes from long-lasting love, comes from love and goodness. These things never go away once we've actually become those things or acquired those things. Whereas all these other treasures out there or whatever, people get $1 million and their lives get messed up. Now, I know I would like to have $1 million too, but it's not going to make you happy. I don't have enough anymore. You know, I want to be more popular. I'm still, someone else is more popular than me. I need to be more popular. You know, I don't have enough possessions. I got this great car. There's another car that's even better. It's not satisfying if you focus simply on those things. And that's where prosperity ministry and all that stuff breaks down.
Right.
You know, you know, you're not going to find happiness in those things. And that is not what Jesus meant.
Yeah, it's really, again, like we've said, it's all about love. And if God is love, is the infinite loving creator of everything, but he's also love itself flowing through, then his plan for us and the way he provides for us is with love for love. And all the things we learn, all the truths we know, they're just helping us actually live that life of love. Now, we did talk briefly about how there's that flow and how it's often we're being led by the Lord mysteriously and in hidden ways. How can we be better about being more conscious, more intentional, and aware of the Lord's providence?
What's interesting, again, because Swedenborg says it's very difficult and probably not a good idea to try to see where providence is leading us either now or in the future.
So we can't see the future.
No, well,
Yeah.
you can guess the future. I mean, maybe somebody has some kind of ability. I don't know, but the thing is that where we really see providence is when we look back. You know, we can look back, you know, and see, oh, I see how the Lord was guiding me, you know, or has been guiding me, you know, at those times. It's more likely we could see it if we want to see it again there, and from that learn the lessons that we need to learn. And I think that mostly in that when you really do sense that the Lord was there for me in the good and the bad, the more hope I have, the more confidence I have, the more peace I have that in God's world, everything is okay.
Yeah, you can look back on your life. I think that's really key. We've talked before about the importance of gratitude.
Yeah.
And also living a life of being willing to change. Mm-hmm. I think when I look back on my life and I'm trying to see God, those are the questions I have to ask. Where was the Lord working to change my heart? And that's where I'm going to see the most evidence for God. And that's where I can be grateful for the Lord's presence.
Absolutely.
So thank you. Thank you again.
My pleasure.
This has been a great talk, and we'll talk again soon.
Great.